Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another MAMG Let's Play of a game that I still don't know how to pronounce, but we're going into a basement, things are creepy, there may be a lady who's dead, but honestly, I'm not sure, so we're just gonna go, okay? I squinted down the stairs, it was almost pitch black. I swallowed back my nerves and carefully crept down the steps. Maybe I should have called out to the woman, but something told me not to. I managed to reach the bottom of the stairs and peeked around the corner. There, I saw the woman kneeling by lamplight in front of a large cage. A basket of strange plants sat beside her. There, it's all right. Take a good sniff of the cup. We need to hurry, okay? I know that he's growing one too. Everyone is. What? Everyone wants to get rid of the competition, but we need to hurry. She held the man's cup to the bars. Something in her voice disturbed me. Whatever was going on, I wanted no part of it. I returned to the living room as quietly as I could. There you are, all ready to go? Upon hearing the man's loud voice, I jumped a bit. What I had seen in the basement made me a bit anxious. I took a quick look around and saw that the girl was already gone. Sure, I'm ready. Leaving already? I just made some more tea. I turned to see the woman standing in the living room entrance with a put-on smile. Sorry, dear. I'm just not young enough to stay out late like we used to. Dear? She put on a playful pout. Oh, you do wound me. Come by again. I know you're welcome any time. We bid our farewells and set out into the cold night. I was glad to leave. What I had seen was still nagging on my mind. The man might be in danger. I had to tell him. I hesitated. How was I supposed to tell him when I myself wasn't sure what I had seen? But I collected myself and went for it. To my surprise, he wasn't nearly as upset as the woman as I thought he would be. He actually seemed more upset at me. I think you should not have snooped around in someone's house who invited you over. We've gotten into houses that we weren't even invited to, so. I was left perplexed. What just happened? I thought I was warning him, but instead he's scolding me like I'm a child. His face relaxed and gave me the usual smile. It seemed slightly pained this time. I suppose there's been no harm done. Perhaps he just didn't believe me. I couldn't blame him. I noticed more and more vacant houses as we crept through the town. Some were boarded up. Doors had been left wide open. Why are there so many empty houses here? These houses have been vacant for a while now. You need not worry. Oh, but I do. I do indeed worry. I was sure that I passed by here earlier, but I didn't notice any abandoned buildings back then. They couldn't have left so suddenly in just half a day, could they? An uneasy feeling started to fester inside of me. Here we are. We stopped before a house that looked much like every other house in the town. He stepped inside. I hesitated at the entrance before trailing behind him. Come on in, no need to be shy. Do you want something to drink? No, thanks. The man hesitantly grunted and led me down the hallway. I only wanted to use the phone and get out. All the weirdness of the day had me on edge. But what if I still couldn't reach anyone? Where would I go? I was balancing a fine line between hope and despair, and the call would probably be what would topple me over in either direction. All right, here you are. The phone was one of those old-fashioned phones that had a cord attached to the receiver. That's old-fashioned now? Oh my god. At least it had buttons instead of a rotary dial. I picked up the receiver and tried the number. Am I doing something wrong? There's no dial tone. Huh? Let me see. He took the receiver from my hand and pressed a few buttons. He let out a disappointed sigh. Not again. Those rodents keep getting to my cables. I'll go take a look at it. Feel free to make yourself at home. In case you get thirsty. He fetched a small bottle of soda from the kitchen, gave it to me, and went into the basement. What is going on in this town? I'm genuinely curious about that, because as much as I've given this game heat so far, with the lack of logic that happens, I am curious what's going on, because it's not just one person being weird. It's like the residents are interacting with each other and being weird, so it seemed like I wouldn't be able to leave quite so soon. Once I held a drink in my hand, I did start to get thirsty. Oh no, wait, we're gonna save. Okay. I took a sip and thought about what to do next. I'm gonna stay here, because I'm not a thief. I didn't think he'd be happy with me poking around, considering how he felt after I told him about what I saw in the woman's house. He did say make yourself at home, but still. Not wanting to test his kindness, I waited. For 3 whole seconds. All right, it's all done. I jumped. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. No, it's fine. That went faster than I'd expected. Good thing I decided to begin snooping around. The phone should be working now. Feel free to give it a try. I'll give you some space. Call me when you're done. On the phone? Is that what you... I'm sorry. He took the bottle I had drunk from earlier. When did you drink it? And left through the hallway. I had an odd sense of deja vu. I shook it off and started dialing some numbers. They were the same that I'd already tried on the girl's mobile phone. Once again, they failed to connect. How could that be? I was 100% certain that the numbers were correct. I tried all the numbers of my friends, family, and even work colleagues I could think of, until finally... Yes? Hello? It was a woman's voice that I didn't recognize. I was certain that I had dialed the number of one of my work colleagues. Excuse me, is that this Tom's telephone number? I don't know who that is. Are you another scam caller? Don't call me again. She hung up. All right, something was definitely wrong here. It might be best to talk to the man and see if he could help me somehow. Maybe he had a clue as to how I could get back home. I crept down the hall. He went this way, right? I began to hear some murmuring. A steady chill ran down my back. The sound was coming from the basement. Oh, God. The old floorboards squealed beneath my toes. I saw flickers of a weak light coming down from the steps. I took them as gently as I could as I held a hand over my mouth to quiet my breath. I reached the bottom and turned a corner. It was just like before. The man knelt before a big cage, a small lamp next to him. As he held something up to the bars, he hissed to whatever was inside. Yes, yes. You have the scent now, don't you? We must take care of this one tonight. He's curious. He will find the secret much faster than the others. No. We can't have him making something like you too. It's kill or be killed in this town. My stomach dropped out from underneath me as I heard the horrible scraping from inside the cage. I took a step back, bumping into a wall. Oh God! Before I could react, I'd accidentally switched on the main light. The sudden flood of white blinded me for a moment. Once my eyes adjusted, the first thing I saw was it. Hi! The man was screaming at me, but I could barely think about him. I couldn't look away from that creature. It was cowering inside of a dirty cage that seemed to be too small for it. It had features of a human, but I could also see some elements that were distinctly dog-like. Its mouth was way too big, and the inside of it was filled with seemingly randomly sets of teeth, or at least something that resembled teeth. Worst of all, though, were the enormous eyes staring right back at me. The man fumbled with the lock on the cage. My feet finally began to move. I ran out of the house and into the streets. All the while, one thought was frantically running through my head. I had to get out. I had to get away from this demented town. With this thought clouding my mind, I hadn't realized that I had exited town already and was now on a big, grassy plain. Breathing heavily and with fear flooding my mind, I had almost not noticed how heavy my legs had become. Soon I was struggling to stay on my feet, and my vision slowly darkened from exhaustion and panic. I wanted to look back to see how close the monster was, but I was too afraid of seeing it right behind me. I gathered my courage and quickly glanced behind me, and to my surprise, the thing wasn't following me. Wasn't it in a cage? I didn't know if it had ever followed me in the first place, but it seemed like the man wanted to send it after me to kill me. Realizing that I was safe for now, I stopped. My legs were numb and almost gave in, but I managed to keep standing. I couldn't believe what I had just seen. It couldn't be real. There was no way to explain what I had seen, and every inch of my body repulsed the idea of such a monster existing. But I had seen it with my own 2 eyes. I continued on, at a slower pace this time, and soon came to a small but quickly flowing river. It wasn't a good night to get my clothes wet, but it looked small enough for me to jump over it with a running start. I wasn't the athletic type, but I managed to leap over the gap. After walking for what felt like hours, I caught a glimpse of a town. It looked quite a bit bigger than the one I had just left. The concrete buildings looked like needles from the distance. I wasn't fully sure of what I felt at that moment. Part of me was relieved about seeing some civilization and being able to look for help. Another part of me was still in shock over what I had just experienced, but I was too tired to try to make any sense of it. And so I pushed myself onward, using the remaining strength I had left. Soon it's going to be over, was what I naively kept mumbling to myself as I dragged myself closer towards the next nightmare. What? Next nightmare? Is that where it ends? Hi, Game Director here. Thank you for trying out Mycorrhiza's demo. The game has been in development for way longer than one would think, and I'm happy to finally be able to share it with you. Whether you're a horror manga nerd or never read them before, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you pick up on the dynamic audio implementation as well. As someone who's mainly been a composer and sound engineer for visual novels, I made sure to use my expertise in that area to make this game's audio a bit more special. You might even notice a change in title screen theme, now that you finished the first act. Wink wink. If you'd like to help us make whatever, I don't know how to call it that, please consider sharing your opinion. Click on the text open a survey page in the browser. If you'd like to be kept up to date on the game's progress, see exclusive teasers, and chat with us about your favorite horror manga, then check out our Twitter. Nice! While we're on the topic of Twitters, if you're ever craving for some new horror manga to read, I recommend checking out Horror Manga Rec, a Twitter account full of recommendations. Now that the first door has finally been opened, I'll work hard to make sure that the second one will be opened as soon as possible. You can click on the names of the people in the credits that are marked in gray. These are hyperlinks to their social media. You can also find out about them in the About section. Oh! That was shorter than I thought it was. Like, I tried to research at least like how long the game was, and it seemed like it took most people like 45 minutes. Do I just not ramble as long, or I don't know. Well, we can do a couple different things because I am curious about some stuff. And since I have the time to do it, I'm going to try eating the plant and snooping around, and we'll see if that gives us different. What's this do? Oh, it's just locked. Okay, so there's some fingerprints here, but each one is different. Preferences? After choices. Huh. Dyslexic font? That's really cool. That's interesting. Okay, let's try eating the plant. I couldn't really think while hungry, and who knew how long it's been since I've eaten, so it's probably either this or starving. I dug in. They didn't taste that bad. Kinda grassy, but edible. Although it grew harder and harder to chew with every bite. Something red dripped onto the ground. I soon realized that the liquid was coming out of my mouth. I couldn't tell if it was blood or the plant's juices. The more started to pour out as I panicked and tried to figure out what was going on. While feeling around my mouth, I realized I'd become totally numb. Really? Okay, suddenly a fleshy chunk fell into the red pool that had started to form before my feet. Was that my tongue? Whoa! My vision became blurry and my stiff body hit the cold ground. Your tongue fell off? It was dark when I woke up again. Could make out that I was still lying next to the plants. Seemed like no one had bothered to help me. Tried to get up, but I couldn't. Okay. Whole body was paralyzed. I felt the sudden sting traveling from my head to feet, and the pain grew by the second. It's the creatures that passed by before. Something was happening to me. My hand. It was bending in weird ways. Not just my hand, my whole body. It was warping. But it seemed like it couldn't handle the transformation. My body writhed. Ugh, and snapped in two. What? Try again. I was like, what do you mean try again? Okay, what about this? No, I don't want to no. I want to load this. Yes. Let's take a look around. Ooh, okay, let's check the pictures. I took a look at the pictures hanging on the wall. There weren't too many, but he seemed pretty cheerful in all of them. Especially the ones with this dog. For some reason, I hadn't seen it around. Oh, I know why now. Nothing else caught my eye. Oh, so we can do each one. Okay, living room? It was only one room over. Surely he wouldn't mind. He said I should feel at home after all. The living room was minimalistic and unimpressive. A TV stood in the corner, gathering dust. His bookshelf was well maintained on the other hand. I looked over the books. He seemed pretty interested in biology. Maybe he was a teacher or even a researcher like myself. Oh, I didn't know you were a researcher. You don't strike me as the academic type with the thoughts that cross your mind. I'd love to chat with him about his field sometime once I get out of this mess. I chose a random book and opened it. I quickly shut it to recheck the title. It seemed like I had pulled out a fantasy book instead of biology text. Evolutionary Development, a Practical Study Guide. That would be a rather weird name for a fantasy novel, but the depictions on the pages confirmed it being fiction. Or is it? The pages showed drawings of creatures I'd never seen before, accompanied by detailed graphs and diagrams. I guess it could be one of those fake science art pieces like what the Voynich manuscript is theorized to be. Yeah, something like that. I returned the book and went back out into the hall. Oh god, okay. So, since you're gonna jump at me, I'm gonna check the, study. Okay. Entering this man's study felt like I was crossing a line. After all, he invited me into his home and was trying to help me. Also, you went into an abandoned house in the beginning, so it's weird that you have this line now. But my curiosity overwhelmed me. I wondered what that thing in the woman's basement was, and maybe I could find answers here. I took a look at the table to see what he was working on. A flipped over picture frame and an open journal grabbed my attention. I decided to sneak a peek at the picture and was surprised to find a photograph of a woman and the man. They looked older in that picture than I had seen at the woman's place, but they still seemed to be good friends in this one. It depicted them in a park as they were having a picnic. A canvas was set up nearby. Why was it lying around face down? Perhaps he just hadn't had the time to hang it up yet. I turned my attention to the journal. The writing was messy, but I would probably be able to decipher it with some effort. What should I do? Read and take the book? Read it, I guess. I shouldn't just take someone's journal like that. Reading it was bad enough, but it was the lesser evil. I have a feeling that most of the others have found out what the plants can be used for. They must be developing their own pets in secret. Figures it wouldn't go so smoothly. I have to keep growing my own and hope that I'm faster than they are. I should be good. As long as I can avoid leaving anything of mine at someone's place. They can only go after me if they have my scent. I'm so confused as to what this town is. So, the cup, right? He drank from the cup and she gave him that scent. So is that what it is? But then you would think he'd cover his tracks better. It's too bad they die after just one use. I set the journal back down. Now I knew that he was a fantasy writer. That's the only way I could explain what this was about. Especially the terrifying sketches that accompanied the text were something straight out of horror fiction. With doubts gnawing at my mind, I made my way back to the telephone. Huh. Okay, so what happens if we take the book? Normally I wouldn't steal, but this couldn't be further from a normal situation. I had no idea when he'd come back and how much time I'd have to read it. As I picked up the book, something fell out of it. I was startled by the sound and froze. Slowly I picked it up and curiously took a look at it. It was a small key, possibly for a mailbox or a drawer. While wondering about where the key would fit, I suddenly heard steps that were coming closer and closer. My heartbeat accelerated, and in a panic, I put the key and the notebook into my pocket while quickly exiting the room. Does that change something? Does us having the key do something? Let's see. Good thing you didn't catch me snooping around. Okay, give you some space. What is the key? That's so weird. Okay. Try the numbers and a random woman answers, who or what is that? That doesn't make any sense. Okay. Something is definitely wrong here. I'm assuming that we're not going to get to whatever the key does, but let's see. Let's see if anything changes. I doubt it. Reach the bottom, turn the corner, big cage. Okay, you have the scent. Yep, I'm so curious. That's my problem, is I'm very curious. Okay, turn the lights back on. We're gonna see our lovely little pet again. Yeah. So I just want to know what it does. Okay, dog-like, the teeth, eyes, fumbling. Okay, had to get away. I don't think it's gonna do anything else. Cause see, at first when they were talking about his legs being heavy, I thought he was paralyzed, right? Like when he drank the soda, like it did something and he was gonna get drugged again. Want to look back. Okay, gather my courage, and it wasn't following you. Okay. So, what is the key? Need to rest, but oh, this is different. Hang on. Is there a log or something? I'm sorry, I didn't even realize. Let's save. This is different. Okay, let's take a break. I should really take a quick break to make sure that I wouldn't collapse along the way. So I sat down for a bit and kept a lookout for the monster. After catching my breath, I suddenly remembered the journal. Maybe this would be a good time to take a peek inside. Sure? Small peek wouldn't hurt. I might find some clue as to what that thing was. I opened it to the very beginning and began to read. I've discovered the cause of the disappearance of the pets. No one was stealing them or killing them. They just changed. I installed a GPS chip on my own dog and followed it around to see what was going on, just to discover it was eating one of those odd-looking plants. I tried to stop it, but it growled at me. Never had I seen it act that way before. There was nothing I could do but let it finish. Interesting. Okay, so I don't think we missed too much. I think it was just like, we're tired. Should we continue on? Should we not? So, yeah. I took one of those plants with me to study it. After just a day, I saw that my dog had changed. It was a bit bigger and its hair was falling out in great quantities. It also started to bark at me, seemingly for no reason. I tried a bit of the plant myself, hoping to see what was so drawn to it, but I found the taste nearly unbearable. I set the journal down. I thought I had just heard a sound. I jerked my head around me to find the source. There was nothing. Maybe it was just my imagination, or maybe it's time to keep moving. Oh, you're messing with me now. Let's keep reading. I awoke the next day to a piercing pain in my right arm. At first, I was horrified to find that it was entirely bent out of shape. But something inside me suppressed my fear. I calmly stood to fix it. At first, I thought about getting rid of it, but the pain had already subsided. I was able to flatten it by beating it with a hammer. I had lost all feeling of the limb by that point. What would people think if I went out with a bent arm? I began to look for my dog. First thing I found were large animal footprints, much too large for its paws. The kitchen had been torn apart and strange hair littered the whole house. Then I found it, or at least something that was once my dog. I could still see the resemblance, but most of its hair had fallen out and its jaw was dislocated. It began to growl as soon as it saw me. Shortly after, it jumped on me with no provocation. It was hard to keep off with just one hand, but its teeth had fallen out, making it nearly harmless. I managed to knock it down and lock it up in the basement. Now I definitely heard something. I felt real uneasy about this, but I didn't want to stop reading. I felt so close to figuring out something crucial. Okay, now we're gonna save. Because I think what's gonna happen is if we do one more, we're gonna push it and we're gonna die, but we have to do it, right? A little more couldn't hurt. I couldn't see any sign of the monster anywhere. I should be fine. Alright, where was I? I froze up. There was definitely something near me. And it was close. Way too close. I could almost feel its ragged breath on my skin. My heart was starting to race. My chest contracted to the point where I had difficulties breathing. Hi! Oh! Okay. Oh god, you took me to here. Okay. Let's, hang on. Load this. Yes. No. It's way too risky. I should keep moving. Hell knows what that monster would do to me if it found me. I continued on at a slower pace this time, and soon came to a small but quickly flowing river. Okay, so this might be the same? Wasn't a good night to get my clothes wet, but it looked small enough for me to jump over it without a running start. As I leapt the gap, something fell from a pocket and into the water. It was a man's journal. It was too late to retrieve it. It was quickly being carried away. For a split second I considered going after it, but it was decided against it. It was nothing but the scribbles of a madman anyway. I doubted it would have been much use to me. At least, that's what I hoped. But I needed to carry on. I needed to find a way back home. After walking for what felt like hours... So what does the key do? Huh. Look quite a bit bigger. Okay. I think this is the same. Another part of me. Okay. Push myself. Closer towards the next nightmare. Okay. I really wish I knew what the key... Oh! I found key 1. Huh. Interesting. So, I don't know what else I can really do. I feel like that was a pretty good exploration. I'm actually glad that I broke it apart when I did, so that way I could try out the different things in the game, right? See what it has to offer. But yeah, that was interesting. It was way more interesting when you're exploring and trying different options, because without me snooping around and finding the journal and all that kind of stuff, it was very confusing as to what the lady and the man and like all of that, what was going on with it. So there's still the plants. I don't know if that's going to be a common theme when you go to each town or what's gonna happen. But I am definitely interested in this now. And I know I gave this kind of like a hard time when I was first playing it, but I have to express my thoughts. And sometimes what the characters do and what I think a person would do don't match. That doesn't mean that it's wrong. Like, that's what this character does. So it is what it is. But that was a very, very fun demo. When they do release the other 2 doors, I might have to give it a shot. But either way, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you enjoyed. I'll see you guys on the next MAMJ. Let's go.